Hi, I'm Mark Steinbrück with OurChurch.com, and on this video I want to talk about what determines the build time of my website. One of the most popular questions that I'm asked is how soon can the website be done? So we're going to talk about what goes into determining the length of time that it takes to build a website for a client. First, is it a custom or pre-existing design? When we're talking about the design, we're talking about the look, the layout of the website, and the type of design will greatly affect the time that it takes to build a website. Using a pre-existing design, often called a template or a theme if you're working with WordPress, will speed up the process. Pre-existing designs, however, don't offer the uniqueness or the flexibility that custom designs offer. Choosing a custom design will increase the amount of development time. However, it gives you much more control as far as the options, the look, the layout of the website. The number of revisions provided in the design process. This is especially important when you're doing something that has a custom design. So if you only have one revision, then obviously that will take the developer less time. There's going to be less back and forth communication with the developer, and so that will be a quicker process. Whereas if you have 2 or 3 revisions, then that will take a little bit longer because the developer is going through the process of making changes, and you're going to go through the process of reviewing the design and having the developer make those changes. So usually 2 to 3 revisions is sufficient to get the design to the way that the customer wants, but each revision typically does add about a week of time to the design process. Amount of content that is being entered. How much is being entered by the developer versus how much will be entered by you later on. And the amount of content that the developer enters, it's not going to affect the design time as much as a custom design versus a pre-designed template. However, if they're only creating 2 or 3 pages versus creating 40 or 50 pages, that will significantly impact the amount of time that it takes to build the website. The developer and client response times. So what is does the developer have some kind of a goal or a required turnaround time when it comes to responding to your emails or your phone calls? We here at OurChurch.com, we strive for a maximum of 1 business day turnaround time. Oftentimes it's much less than that, and it's within a few hours. But it's good to know, and it's good to find out if the developer has a certain goal time that they have to respond back. But something else that is going to greatly affect the launch date or the overall time of the project is how quickly you, the customer, are in responding back to the developer. One of the biggest things that we find slows down the project, and we're not complaining about it, but it simply is the fact of life, is that oftentimes the website is not the #1 priority of the point of contact, and so it usually will take a few days to get a response back to an email, or when it comes to putting in content, it usually, sometimes it might take weeks to be able to get that content in. So to improve or to speed things up, it's oftentimes very helpful to get responses within a day from the client, or to get the content in within just a few days of when we're asking for it. Website build time. So in summary, it's impacted by whether there is a custom design versus a pre-existing design, the number of revisions that's provided in the design process, the amount of content that the developer is going to be entering, and then lastly, the developer and client response times. So I hope that this has been an informative video and helps you understand what goes into determining the length of time that a website project will take. If there's anything that we can do for you here at OurChurch.com to help you achieve your mission or your goals online, please email us at support@OurChurch.com. Thank you very much.